with the signing of free agent cornerback Josh Norman and with the re-signing of cornerback Levi Wallace. Is there still room on the Buffalo Bills roster for them to look for another cornerback in free agency? Welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this free agency preview edition of Believers Talk, where we take a position on the field and ask ourselves, is this a position of need for the Buffalo Bills, and will they address it in free agency? Again, guys, welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe. If you're new to the program, guys, thank you for joining me on Believers Talk. Hit that thumbs up button, like this video, it helps out the channel a bunch. And if you haven't already subscribed, guys, with free agency just around the corner, there's going to be a lot of breaking news right here on Believers Talk. If you don't want to miss any of it, hit that subscribe button and then hit that notification bell. YouTube will notify you when we put out new content, guys. Last year, after every free agent pickup by the Buffalo Bills, we did a video on that free agent. We plan to do the same thing again this year, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, then hit that notification bell. So in this video, we're going to preview the cornerback position. Now, I know that a lot of you might be saying we're set at cornerback with the signing of Norman on Monday, I believe it was, and then with the re-signing of Levi Wallace on Tuesday. You might be saying, hey, Joe, we got what we need at the cornerback position. However, you still have to think of depth, right? You have a 90-man roster coming into the season. Are there any guys currently on the free agent market that are going to help this Buffalo Bills team out? Now, listen, guys, I'm not going out there saying that we have to get a Chris Harris, Brian Jones, some of the top free agents, Trey Waynes. I'm not saying that we have to go after them. I know that their price tag is going to be too high. We don't want to have too much money wrapped up in the cornerback position. And besides that, we have our true number one corner in Tre'Davious White. If we're going to lock up money this season on the cornerback position, it's hopefully because we re-sign Tre'Davious White to a long-term deal so he can be a Buffalo Bill for years to come. I think we're all huge fans of Tre'Davious White, a guy who was a Pro Bowler last season, a guy who was tied for the league lead in interceptions. I think that is where our future is at the cornerback position. But guys, again, we signed Norman on Monday to a $6 million deal, could be $8 million with incentives, and there's a lot of up and down chatter about that pickup. Again, some people think he's just a little washed up. They look at his time in Washington and they say, wow, he really did not play well in Washington. I believe PFF had him ranked as like the 111th best corner out of 119 or something like that. Someone in the comment section can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how much I pay attention to PFF. I really don't know what their grading system looks like. But at the same time, we look at his time in Carolina with under Coach McDermott, and that was some of the best years of his career. And that's how he was able to get a $15 million per year deal for 5 years from the Washington Redskins. So, and those are two totally different schemes. So we're going to see if Josh Norman has what it takes to continue on a trajectory that he was on in Carolina to be one of the better cornerbacks in the game, or if he is where he's at, like he was in Washington, and he's a below-average corner who might not even make it to the start of the season. And then, of course, the re-signing of Levi Wallace. We all know that Levi Wallace is coming on strong as of late for the Buffalo Bills, an undrafted free agent. Like what we see out of him. We really do. I like what I see out of him. But is there room for more competition? You think about Kevin Johnson last season, right? Kevin Johnson last season, coming off of his years at Houston, former first-round draft pick, coming off some injuries, right? Had a few injuries that really were making his production lack, so to speak. They were making it harder for him to see playing time, and for that, the Buffalo Bills got him cheaply. Right, but now you look at how he did last season. He didn't do too bad last season on that 1 year prove-it deal for the Buffalo Bills. If you look how he did last season, you talk about playing all 16 games, right, which was something that a lot of teams would have questioned going into last season is, can you play all 16 games and be healthy? Now, we all know that he was on a rotational basis with Levi Wallace. We know that he played that CB2 nickel position pretty well when he was in there, but he played less than 50% of the snaps for the Buffalo Bills. However, that still can get you a pretty decent payday, right? And with the payday we potentially just gave Josh Norman, we cannot afford another big payday at that cornerback position. And that's why I told you guys earlier, I don't think we're going after one of the top corners in this year's free agency period. There are some pretty good corners out there, like a Chris Harris, like a Byron Jones, that we need to continue to look at. And if they give us a call and say, hey, Brandon Beane, I want to play for Buffalo, Brandon Beane needs to throw a number out there. I remember a few years ago, my wife and I went to get a car, right? We went to buy our first car, and the dealership, we were talking, we were trying to figure out what kind of deal we could make and how we could get ourselves this car. And the dealer asked us, what price do I have to lower this to have you guys walk out with this car today? And now we knew our price was way too low, but we still gave it to him. We still said, this is the price. We would sign on the dotted line right now, and we would walk out of the dealership today. They came back, they said no, but we would have felt terrible if we wouldn't have even made the offer, right? So if Chris Harris, for some reason, calls Brandon Beane and says, hey, I want to be a Buffalo Bill. I like what you guys are doing in Buffalo. I like the culture you're building in Buffalo. Throw an offer his way. What's the worst that can happen? He says no. Right now, again, I'm not saying we're going to get Chris Harris. I'm not saying we're going to get one of these top 5 cornerbacks currently in the free agent market. But again, throw an offer his way if he says he wants to come to Buffalo. Maybe we can get him cheaper. Maybe we can get him cheaper than what others think. Maybe location's more important to him and he wants to be in Buffalo. He likes the chance he has to play alongside Tre'Davious White and have 2 lockdown corners where their offense is going to have a hard time getting anything past. If you could only imagine what this team would be like with like a Trey Waynes type cornerback, CB2, and then you can move Levi Wallace and Norman to that slot position and then fight for that slot position. But man, it would definitely add to the potential of this defense if we could do that. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying there's less than 1% chance of that happening. But again, if they give Brandon Beane a call, Brandon Beane has to be ready to make an offer. So he has to be ready for that just in case it happens. However, you look at what we did with Kevin Johnson last season, right? Signed him to a 1-year deal. Again, was a little injury prone when he was in Houston. So it led to less time on the field, led to a pretty cheap deal. Is there a cornerback in this free agent period that we could get pretty cheaply who has a little bit of upside, who can continue to fight with Josh Norman and Levi Wallace for possibly some time at that CB2 or maybe even that slot CB3 position? I say there is, and I even have a name in mind, and that is going to be Artie Burns. Former first-round draft pick, so he's just like Johnson, right? Just like Kevin Johnson, he was a former first-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He only played in 66 snaps last season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Only 66 snaps the whole season. That's it. Not that many. Played in 10 games, only 66 snaps. So you know he's going to be here on a short-term deal. He wants to have a prove-it deal, which Brandon Beane, Coach McDermott, you know that they're willing to give a player those. Prove-it deal, 1 or maybe even 2-year deal to prove it, to show that he is worth that first-round pick that the Steelers used on him in 2016. And guys, in 2016, he did have 3 interceptions for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm looking at Archie Burns and I'm saying, Artie Burns. I'm saying this is a guy that you could get for cheap. This is a guy that could be effective. This is a guy that could fight for a CB2 or a CB3 type spot on your team. And worst case scenario, this could be a guy that helps out on special teams. Again, last year playing in 10 games, only 66 defensive snaps. He played some special teams last season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe that's the kind of role you want to put him in for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm looking at some different perspectives here and saying, can we still pick up a cornerback? Yes, but the cornerback has to be for a cheap price, because again, you don't want to have too much money locked up in the cornerback position. There's already one cornerback that you have on your team that you're hoping to re-sign to a long-term big money contract. It might be one of the highest cornerbacks, if not the highest cornerbacks in the league after he signs that contract in Tre'Davious White. So you want a guy, if you're looking at another cornerback, you want a guy who's going to have a small contract. If you look at Spot Track, they have Artie Burns' market value at $1 million per season, so that's not going to be too bad at all. Again, looking for a short-term prove-it deal. Also looked at Kendall Fuller from the Kansas City Chiefs. Spent a lot of time injured last season and some previous seasons with the Chiefs, although he played well in the Super Bowl against the Niners, made some key plays, including the key interception towards the end of that game there. So we might not sign for as cheap as Artie Burns does, but maybe something you get a little cheaper, another prove-it type deal. Two guys that I wouldn't mind possibly taking a shot on. Again, I'm not saying that we are going to move on from Josh Norman or Levi Wallace. We won't, but some guys to add to that. Competition is never a bad thing. Competition just, makes things better during training camp. And we don't even have to keep these guys after training camp, but it's worth a shot. You're talking about a former first-round pick in Artie Burns, someone that you could pick up for $1 million or so, according to Spot Track, per season. Give him a shot to show that he can be worth that first-round value, just like you did Kevin Johnson. And then at the end of the season, turn it around. He can make a bigger deal somewhere else, like Kevin Johnson probably plans to do this offseason. But I don't see us re-signing Kevin Johnson after we re-sign Levi Wallace, after we sign Josh Norman. I don't see us signing a top-name corner. I think that's obvious with the Buffalo Bills wanting to re-sign White. But look at someone like an Artie Burns, someone who's not going to make a lot of money, someone who was a former first-round draft pick, someone who wants to be on a prove-it deal. And I think that the Buffalo Bills may sign another cornerback in free agency. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that we have too many corners already and that we don't need any more? Or do you think the Buffalo Bills could look at a cheap, potentially good cornerback who wants to have a prove-it type deal come out on the Buffalo Bills and prove it? Again, let me know what you think. If you're not already subscribed to Believers Talk, guys, again, remember, this is about to go crazy. Free agency is less than a week away, and we're going to have you covered right here on Believers Talk. So you want to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, like this video if you haven't already, just hit that thumbs up button, and again, leave a comment. Tell me what you think about the cornerback position as it pertains to the Buffalo Bills, guys. Again, thank you for joining me. I look forward to talking to you all soon. And with free agency coming up, it may be sooner than you think. Until I do, go Bills.